Cheese. I love cheese. And I've grown up in a culture that loves cheese. My dad's side of the family is Swiss, and so at most special occasions, family get-togethers and stuff, there would be a charcuterie board featuring predominantly an assortment of many fine cheeses. Recently, I splurged myself on some pretty fancy, tasty cheese, and it occurred to me that this is maybe not such a universal experience. Probably a lot of people don't come from cheese households, and I thought maybe it would be fun to share with you the experience of eating this sort of cheese, try to talk about what the appeal of it is. Um, I know that there are lots of Shonen Jump chapters out there and new chapters of One Punch Man and Attack on Titan and other things that people actually subscribe to this channel for, but it's my channel. And what we're getting today is a cheese video. So here you can see, hopefully I can position this that you can take a look without it spilling off. We're going to talk about 5 different cheeses. The first 2 I want to talk about are these 2 here, which are both cheddars. This one, which looks very simple, very homogeneous, just the platonic ideal of cheese, is actually a much cheaper cheese than the rest. One just made by Black Diamond, which is a cheese company that makes like commercial supermarket cheese, which I quite like. You can see here it's extra old cheddar, and then the French translation, being in Canada everything is bilingual, is extra fort, which actually directly translates to extra strong. So that gives us a clue here to one of the major components in cheese flavor, which is age. The longer you have a cheese aged, the longer it goes between being produced as a cheese and you eating it, the stronger and more intense the flavor becomes. And that's because the moisture slowly evaporates out, leaving a more and more concentrated, sharp cheese flavor. So I'm not really an expert. I'll say things like this, and then maybe if you check Wikipedia, that's like slightly wrong. Please don't take my word as gospel. This is more about my personal experience with these cheeses and what have you. So let's eat this one. This is just the Black Diamond Extra Old. Maybe I should have made these pieces smaller. It's gonna be a long video if you're just sitting here watching me eat these pieces of cheese. But yeah, so this is still very creamy. It's still very pliable. It bends instead of just cracking. There's almost like a squeak when you chew into it, just because the texture is so even and uniform that when you're biting into it, you're really kind of shearing away through the whole thing. The flavor is, in my in my range of tastes, extremely mild, but it still kind of provides this rich sharpness that I'm looking for. And the adjective sharp is kind of hard to pin down. It's not quite bitter, it's not quite sour, it's not quite tangy, but it kind of has elements of all of those. It's very much a flavor that kind of just makes you clench up a little bit in a positive way, one that really spreads through your body. I think the closest comparison I can make is like hard liquor, the experience of taking a shot of hard liquor and how even this tiny, tiny amount just instantly floods through your entire body. But you can eat as much cheese as you like without getting drunk. You might get fat, but whatever. Anyways, so this is, I think, a good starting point to just go to your supermarket, find a brand of cheese that you like, and get the extra oldest, extra strongest version of that. And if you kind of like that experience, if you like the direction that that's going from like a normal orange cheddar or like a pizza cheese or whatever, then yeah, like plunge ahead. But if that's not so appealing, then it might not be worth investing your time and money into this hobby. So we're going to escalate that very quickly from this old cheddar, which it doesn't say anything about how old it actually is, just that it's the extra oldestest. Yeah, there's no real information, to this bad boy here. This is the most expensive cheese of the ones that we're going to be looking at. This block, I think, was a little over $20, which in the world of gourmet food really isn't that bad. Considering how slowly you eat something like this, like how little you want at a time, I think it's really worth it. But it is significantly more than what you're going to find at a normal supermarket. So this I got directly from a cheese factory. And already the flavor, or the smell, is just immensely different. There's almost no smell at all to this, whereas this has a strong, rich, cheesy flavor. You can see that instead of just like a uniform texture, it's crumbly, it's flaky, it's heterogeneous. You can tell that it was just a human that cut it for me off a larger slab. That kind of rusticness appeals to me. It just sort of completes the package. If we look at the piece of cheese itself, you can see again, if it goes into focus, that there's all these kind of like flakes and scales. And if I try to bend it, it's just gonna fall apart instantly. So this cheddar, guess how old it is? This is 8 years old, which might not sound that crazy. You know, 8 years, kind of a reasonable, it's like a young age for things to be, but this cheddar was being made in 2012. This cheddar remembers President Barack Obama. This cheddar doesn't even know about the Nintendo Switch. Yeah, so let's take a little bite of history here. Oh my god, it's so good. My god, oh, it's so good. Oh, geez, I can't convey to you just how exciting it is to bite into something like that. Even in these tiny little pieces, just the crumbs that fall off. It's like enough. It's really all you need. It just flows through you. It just completely overwhelms all of your reasoning faculties from the source of taste. It's interesting how heterogeneous the taste is too. Because of this aging process, the rate at which moisture comes out isn't totally uniform. So what that leads is to little nodules of flavor, almost crystal cheese within the cheese that has a distinctly different texture, and the flavor is just super concentrated in it. So when you bite into it, at first you're getting what's just a very exaggerated form of this, and then every once in a while it's like the flavor hits like the nitro button, and you're just boom. Oh, I love it. Oh, let's have a little more. Lordy, lordy. This has got to be one of my favorite foods of all time. A really old cheddar. It's just so unique and such a complex experience, and yet at the same time, it's so simple and kind of, it all kind of points to one feeling. It's not like this multifaceted sort of complexity. It's just this singular cheese experience. Just so good. Oh my, a little more, a little more. Oh man. Forget what I said about trying this, seeing if you like that kind of direction, and then maybe splurging on something like this. Make it a priority. Find some way to try really, really old cheddar at least once. It's such a unique experience. I think even if you hate it, and probably a lot of people will hate it, you won't regret trying it. Just to be like, oh, so that's what the big deal is. Yeah. Oh, I just love it. And what's great too is that it's hard to find stuff like this sometimes. Places that will sell you really, really old cheddar. And for a long time, there was like a cheese factory that me and my dad would go to on the way out to our cottage that had a fantastic, I think it was a 7-year cheddar. Much more orange than this, and the flavor profile is a little different. That in many ways is still my favorite, but maybe that's just because we've had so much of it, such a fond memory. But that place shut down, unfortunately. But the place I found this is right nearby. They seem to be doing good business, I'm really glad I have a consistent source now. Mm. The other thing I love is like after eating this, everything else is thrown into such sharp contrast. If you'll forgive the sharp pun. It's such a strong flavor that if you eat something sweet after this, like, oh man, is it ever sweet. If you eat something, I don't know, and anything. Okay, so let's move on. The other thing I bought from the same place was a a mystery bag of cheeses that included both, or it's at least mine did, included both cheeses sourced from elsewhere that they just buy, and then other cheeses that I assume they made themselves. Unfortunately, 2 out of the 3 cheeses, ones that I think they made, were just wrapped in plastic wrap with absolutely no labeling or information whatsoever. So I'm just kind of using my own best guess to figure out what it is. But the first one we'll talk about, which is this one, is something sourced from elsewhere. It's the Frère Jacques cheese. So this is a ripened firm cheese, which isn't really all that descriptive. It's a Canadian cheese made by a company in Quebec, but it's very much in the French cheese tradition, so it's hard, relatively speaking, but you can see it's still very pliable compared, oh, I already ate all of it, compared to this thing, which you know would just kind of get snapped in half. It's ripened, but it's not aged, so it's basically taken to the point where, oh, there's like a crumb of the old cheddar on there. Oh, it's so freaking good. It's aged to the point where the flavors have really kind of been given a chance to mature, but not to this point where it's drying out and getting more concentrated. And you'll also notice that French and Swiss cheeses are often sold as slices of the overall cheese wheel, so it includes the rind as well. People are split, it seems, over whether or not they like eating the rind, but like, come on, the rind is so good. It provides such an interesting contrast of texture. The flavor is like muted in some regards, but intensified in other regards compared to the inner part of the cheese. I highly recommend getting accustomed to eating the rind. Okay, so let's eat this. That's good. That's nice. I would say if you know like Swiss cheese, if you know Havarti, it's somewhere in between the two. So it's not a super intense taste, and it's more about this kind of aftertaste that the only word I can describe is like empty. Which really doesn't do it justice. This sounds bad, but it really feels like somehow the flavor is getting like pulled away from you, and you're tasting this kind of like absence, this void. I really don't know how to describe it. It's pronounced in Swiss cheese, and Gruyere, which is my favorite Swiss cheese, has like a very strong sense of this. But it's really good. I haven't even talked about like compliments with cheese, like with the old cheddar. Eating it with like things like apple pie is just phenomenal. But this I think works really well with other savory things, like with meats or seafood or tomato-based things, because it has, when this kind of pulling occurs, you really like sink into these savory flavors. It's quite wonderful. Okay, so this is one of the mystery cheeses. It's some sort of modified cheese. It has like some speckles in it. They're green-ish. So this is cheese that has been mixed with some sort of herbal type thing. I really like it. I almost feel like not eating all of it, taking it back with me to this cheese factory and being like, I want more of this. Like, what is this one? Give me more of this. It's sort of similar to this one, to the ripened cheese. I'd say it's a little more flavorful. It doesn't have as much of this indescribable, like, empty ending. It's more like a full-bodied, rich thing. but the initial flavor is quite similar to these French and Swiss cheeses. Really, really nice though. I do like it. Whatever element the herbal inclusion is adding is very, very subtle. Like I wouldn't say this tastes like anything besides cheese. And yet there is something quite unique to it that I can't really put my finger on that I think must be that influence. So yeah, it's good. Nice, again, soft, pliable. Um, and even though it has this herbal element, it's quite a homogeneous taste. Unlike the super old cheddar. Okay, now we have our final boss. This I haven't actually tasted yet. I don't know exactly what it is, but I know it's some type of blue cheese. And blue cheese is like a major genre of cheese that's marked by these blue things, this blue kind of matted texture that's interwoven through the whole thing. And that's actually mold. Blue cheese is cheese that has intentionally allowed mold to build up on it. Some people are off-put by that very idea, just completely disgusted by the idea of deliberately eating mold, which, understandable, 99.9% of the time you do not want to eat mold. And then other people can kind of get their heads around that, and then they taste it, and they absolutely hate it, because it's an incredibly strong taste. Wow, yeah. That's a pretty strong blue cheese. As a fan of blue cheese, that one is still... It kind of kicks my ass a little bit. I hadn't tried that one before. The other ones on my selection I've had a little bit of since I bought them. This one I knew I knew it would be a big step. So the old cheddar has a very strong flavor. The blue cheese has a very strong flavor. How do they compare? I would say the blue cheese, it's more about like an intense pugnancy. Like blue cheese also. Ooh, whew, it smells. It really smells. And it smells very much like what it tastes, like a very earthy, almost mushroomy, kind of a damp taste. I don't know how to make this sound appealing. uh, Whereas the cheddar is kind of more sharp, pure. There are some overlaps though still of the two tastes. There's still kind of this sharpness in the blue cheese. It's so hard to pin these words down. Sharp, earthy. I don't know. This is really good though. This is fantastic blue cheese. Mm. Mm-hmm. Lordy, lordy. Whew, okay. Yeah. All right. All right. Let's go back to the milder cheeses for a finale. I love biting through the rind. And that's so satisfying. Okay. Ooh, okay. All right. A little bit of a journey there. That's for sure. As I said, part of the appeal of splurging on delicacies like this is that you end up eating them really slowly. As long as you can keep it in, I'll probably have to put this in a Ziploc bag because the wrapping is kind of falling apart, but as long as you can keep them from spoiling, it's going to be something that you return to a very small amount on kind of special occasions when you're really in the mood for it. Something extraordinary, not something that you're just going to sit down on the couch and chow your way through. So when you think about the price point, you shouldn't be comparing it directly to other foods because you're going to eat it very differently than other foods. So yeah, this is like an investment in my snacking future. And I'm really excited to try pairing it with different things, perhaps using it as an ingredient in some things, like grated over pasta. I think this sort of cheese would be really, really nice. or made into like a quiche, things like that. The cheddar is tough. It really fights for dominance, but with like fruit, I think it pairs really nicely. A sweet apple cut by the sharp, sharp cheddar. Wonderful. Yeah, I enjoyed making this video. It was something I wanted to do. I didn't feel like making any other videos, apparently, but I felt like doing this. I hope you enjoyed watching it. I'd love to do this for other delicacies I'm a fan of. This could be a nice little series. I have a job again, so I don't feel so bad splurging on expensive food. Or just kind of interesting food out of the ordinary food. I can see right here, this bag is almost empty, but I've been into fish skin lately. It's so good. It's just literally the skin of a fish, fried up, lightly battered, flavored. It's good. A couple other flavors of this I want to try. So we could talk about that. I want to get caviar. I've had caviar at sushi restaurants a couple times. I just love it. I want to try just eating it in other forms outside of sushi. Ikura, salmon caviar as well. I'm a big fan of. I'd love to talk about that. What else? What else? Truffles. I've had truffles used in sauce before, but I've never actually eaten truffle flake by itself. Might be something to splurge on. What else? What else? There's something else. Shoot, the cheese has just blanked my mind. All I can think about is the intensity of this cheese. There's probably other cheeses we can try too that would be interesting. I don't know. Anyways, yeah, delicacies. I'll try them all. I'll try anything. Really, I try to keep a very open palate. So anything you'd recommend, if it's a little exotic, a little interesting, just let me know. Ideally, something like purchasable. Oh, uni! Uni! I love uni! I want to buy some uni and kind of prepare it myself because I've only ever had it at sushi restaurants. Yeah, okay. All right, that's it for now. Please look forward to more content like this, maybe. Who knows? Please also look forward to manga videos. It'll happen eventually, hopefully. Bye-bye.